Good evening, everyone. Mo Berg was athletic enough to play professional baseball for several major leagues, including the Red Sox. Smart enough to attend Princeton and Columbia and earn a law degree, and daring enough to spy on the Nazis during World War II. Now his amazing life is captured in a new documentary, The Spy Behind Home Plate.
Whenever you're talking about anything with Mo Berg, the first thing you have to understand is it's going to be complicated.
It's a hell of a story.
He loved being a mystery.
Mo Berg was a terrific athlete.
Mo would disappear after games.
He was very charming. The girls would go gaga.
He was a loner who wanted to experience the world and found a way to do it.
Who is this guy who can do all of this?
He was smart and he was funny.
Casey Stengel said he could speak 7 languages and couldn't hit in any of them.
Brain and brawn really does make Mo Berg the ultimate Jewish athlete.
Mo Berg was very aware that peace was going to be disrupted in the world.
The catcher has to have that bird's eye view.
Was he doing intelligence work while he was still in baseball?
He's assessing what's in front of him, where the base runners are, how fast they are, what score is it, what inning is it, who's pitching, what's his stuff, who's up, what can he hit, what can't he hit, how do we win the game.
Here's a guy who went to Princeton, Columbia, spoke many languages, was a professional baseball player. I mean, he wasn't real, you would have had to invent him.
Germany got a big head start on building an atomic bomb.
And it was very obvious that if anybody could ever unlock this great secret, they'd control the world.
The OSS had given the Manhattan Project its own spy, and that was Mo Berg.
It had to be about as dangerous a job as a fellow could undertake. He went behind the lines in a war where a man's life isn't worth 2 cents, you know. I think it takes a great patriot to do something like that.
Mo Berg's father never went to see him play a single game. But Mo Berg said he'd rather be a baseball player than be a Supreme Court justice. What he wound up being is an American hero.
Joining me now, Aviva Kepner, the producer and director of The Spy Behind Home Plate. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, in the movie, Mo Berg is called a Renaissance man. He was the ultimate Jewish athlete. He was a James Bond type spy. He was also a really smart individual.
Well, you know, it's interesting because he played for the Red Sox 5 years here in Boston, and when he was on his off time, he would go to all the bookstores. He was a real intellectual. He was a linguist who had graduated summa cum laude from Princeton. So he was the combination of brain and brawn. He was called the brainiest man in baseball.
What type of baseball player was he?
Okay, he played for 15 years. His average was .234, which actually for a utility player is not that bad. 15 years in the major leagues. He played from 35 to 39 here in Boston, and Cronin liked him so much, and the players liked him so much, he ended up being a catcher most years, is he was 2 years as a coach here in Boston. And he loved Boston, I think, more than any other team he played for, and vice versa, they loved him.
In the 30s, he did a Goodwill baseball tour with Babe Ruth and other baseball stars. Was that the start of his espionage career?
Well, I think the film depicts it, and it's clear that in '34 there was an all-star team, like you said, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Lefty Gomez, you name it. All except Mo were really all-star players. And while they're at a game one day, he goes to the hospital under the guise of visiting the ambassador's daughter who just had a baby, goes upstairs with a Bell and Howell camera and films the whole landscape of Tokyo, which was probably used as preparation for the Doolittle raid.
And after his baseball career, he became involved with the Manhattan Project. Can you tell me about that?
Right. So he, as many others, were recruited by Wild Bill Donovan to join the OSS. They specifically had him assigned to try to figure out if the Germans had a bomb or not. So he was sent on many missions, first to Italy to sort of find out what Germany was doing from other Italian scientists.
His important mission, go to Zurich to attend a lecture by German nuclear physicist Werner Heisenberg.
He was assigned to attend that lecture with a cyanide pill in one pocket and a gun in the other, and that if Heisenberg expressed any knowledge of knowing that the Germans were developing a bomb, Moe was supposed to shoot him. But you have to see the film to find out what happened.
Wow, what a fascinating man. Fascinating story. So where and when can people see The Spy Behind Home Plate?
Okay. It's opening up June 28th at the Kendall Square Cinema. I'm going to be up that Sunday that it opens up to do Q&A.
Viva Kepner, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will be right back.